like I said, most of my money comes from the States for script doctoring and script editing. That's just where the money is. That's just where the money. Spec scripts aren't going to get you anywhere. Not in this country.
In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This week we have Ronika Merl, a screenwriter and author, with a new book called The Hustle Workshop on Script Writing, which sounds really, really interesting. But we've already been stuck in a conversation with Garvin, and he'll probably take over the show at some point, and we won't be able to get going about that. So very, very quickly then, Roni, tell us a little bit about your book before we get cut off.
No, you can't do that,
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. There you go. There you go. So,
they know the rules before they get on the show. No, you're not allowed. You can't do that. There's no talking about this second book till we get to the book. Right, I'm going straight for the name instead because people are more interested in that. Okay. Right? No, if you didn't meet you and you heard the word Roni, you'd think of a big tash. You're going to someone with a big tash, some big burly bloke with a tash. That's Roni. Good old Ronika Merl. So well, actually, we won't even go there.
It's there. Let me tell you.
There you go. So you said you had problems with people pronouncing your name, spelling your name. You go, I believe you go into shops left, right, and center and go, it's not Veronica, it's Ronika. And then you spend half your day doing this.
Every day I have to spell out my name every time over the phone, any customer service, everybody always gets confused. And it's not Veronica and it's not Monica, it's just Ronika.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What's the meaning?
It doesn't mean anything. My mother.
That's it. Next subject. We're on to the next subject. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Garvin, what does your name mean, Garvin? Because George actually means the tiller of the soil, and John means God's blessed. So when I'm actually developing characters, I always try to work out what the meaning of the name is, and that
I know it meant nothing to my mother and father for a start. What it actually was a combination of two names put together, Garvan and Gavin. And I spend my entire life saying it's not Garvan, it's Garvin. And they go, it's Gavin. And we're in this conversation. The great thing about it is I like the fact you have an unusual name, and I have an unusual name because you spend most of the time, you're 3 minutes or 5 minutes into a conversation. We haven't even got off the name yet. Yes. And now you've already made friends and influenced people, and they don't, once they get it, they don't forget.
They don't forget it.
But in my case, they want to forget it. In your case, they might want to remember it. That's a little bit different. You're better looking than me.
We've kind of got into the idea. Yeah, we've got into the idea that Garvin's name actually means confusion, complete and absolute narcissism, and all sorts of things. So, if you were to give a meaning to your name, what would you say that was?
I don't really know. I think. Oh God,
we're drawing on those script writing.
Script writing. Yeah.
I would like if I could choose a meaning to my name, I would like it to be persistence.
Right.
That's very deep with
you're going to have a lot of that in this show.
That's really good.
Deep level.
Persistence.
Now, actually, we'll get back to the first question because George wants to keep this serious in some sort of way, professional. And
what was the question? I forgot what that question was.
That's exactly what my power is.
The wind blew it away. It's gone. Yeah. Sorry, it's gone.
The great thing about your name, if you were a burly bloke with a tash, you'd be a hustler. So actually, it is actually very, very apt. You need to have a name like that, and you need to get your hustle on. And hustle, you're bringing it back to what you were saying. You will be you got to be a persistent hustler. Right. So now we're up to it. Why are you hustling? Is what we want to know. What's the hustle all about?
That was a beautiful transition. Fair play. That was
fair play to you. Top of the morning there, but Jesus and me God and all the saints in heaven.
Yes, what do I hustle? Yes, that's what my book is called, incidentally. Wouldn't you know?
That's as much as we know about you now.
Yeah, that's it.
The book came about because a friend and I realized that screenwriting isn't seen as a profession here, and that it's always, or very often, it's writer-directors who kind of create most of the scripts, and there's no real marketplace just for scripts. And then we realized there are quite a few people who actually want to be just screenwriters as just the profession of writing for the screen. But there's no real pathways in Ireland that would facilitate a career. But on the other hand, I am a professional screenwriter is what I do. It's my full-time job. I don't have a day job anymore. This is what I do for a living. So clearly, obviously, it is possible to be a full-time screenwriter in Ireland, even though the marketplace for screenwriters doesn't officially really exist. And that's how the book came about, because we started to realize, okay, there must be some way for Irish people to make a living from screenwriting. And what are the ways, and how can people who want to be screenwriters in this country, how can they forge that career path? And that's how the book came about. And it's on sale now. Plug it.
No, I'm going to just go back to the hustle for a second and go, right, we found the career path. Everybody has to read this book. They're all going to have to grow a bunch of tashes, and they got to get their little gangster names on. And you start going out there, you got to start hustling, lads. You got to get dressed. You got to get out there. You got to network, get work. You can have a profession, but the profession isn't at home. You got to bring it out and do a little bit of hustling. Paul Newman, I think, might have been a hustler. So what was the answer? What was if there was one takeaway thing in that book, which we haven't read and probably won't, what is it?
The one takeaway thing is that you have to be absolutely excellent to work with.
Right. George, we better leave again. That's it. Everybody should want to work with you. That is all you need. Touch as many people's lives as you possibly can and leave the impression that you are great to work with in everyone. Now, that's the problem with the catch. Now, George will probably jump in. He's going to want the question sometime soon. There's a catch-22 in there, in the sense of, and then we talked to CJ, we talked to a few other people. They don't know you're great. They don't know who you are. They don't know.
CJ does.
No, CJ does. He's done it. He's one of those ones that broke the path. No, the problem is for the other ones that are reading a book and want to be the professional, want to go on the journey, and they need to get their wares out there to be seen that they can be professional, that they can be seen that they're a good storyteller. But there's 1,000 in the queue, and what we were coming back to, even with Stephen and a few others, was there's a big queue. There's very few gatekeepers. No one knows where you are in the queue.
Yes. So you just have to write and produce as much as you possibly can. So if you have one script, that's great, but seriously, nobody's going to bat an eye at it. If you have 20, or in my case, 22, 4 of which are in production, then people are going to start noticing. That's why you have to just write. It has to be produced one after the other. So this year alone, I wrote 6 feature-length scripts, 3 of which have producers or directors attached.
Now, I'm going to stop there because I don't understand this language. They have producer directors attached. Is that 2 bills attached to a thing that if the funds were raised, they do the job, or they're attached to raising the funds and it'll be made? They're
raising the funds. Some of the funds are raised for some of the projects, and then for some of the projects, they are attached to now start raising the funds. So it's different stages of development. But you just literally have to call as many people, talk to as many people, be on as many shows as you possibly can.
This one's not going to help you in any way or form.
On as many blog posts. It's literally just trying to get your very unique, hopefully, name out there to see who you can work with. And the industry is very open and very friendly, especially here in Ireland. Most of my paid work comes from the States or the UK. And so that's where I do most of my kind of paid work that kind of pays the bills. And that industry is a lot more closed off, and there's a lot more gatekeepers over there. But I find the Irish industry is really open.
That's very interesting in the sense of you've got work, you're getting work consistently. You've got 6 or 3 in production, or 6 in written, or 20 and 22 out there, or can be go further along the production process. But you're actually getting paid work from the harder gatekeepers. So God forbid you push down the door of the easier ones. You should be inundated. So
but is that right? Because I wonder, because I don't know, although there doesn't seem to be the same kind of marketplace in Ireland, I don't think it's necessarily easier to work there. I think it's probably harder because the structures aren't in place to be able to sustain someone that's a writer. And I think that's why you end up going to the likes of England, or you end up going to likes of America to try and find the work. Do you find actually that being remote and that having the internet to access those marketplaces makes it easier for you to access some of those opportunities?
100%. There's a few factors here that come into play. One is just the fact that everybody in America loves Irish people. If you have a bit of an Irish accent, they love you.
So how the hell does that help you?
Exactly, right? I can just say,
a lovely Irish name like Sheila. Actually, there's your. You should be going, Roni, or whatever your fucking Roni, aka Siobhan Maloney. Paddy Kelly.
That's going, it. Bleach the skin.
Do a little bit of river dance.
Yeah.
No, actually, the great thing about it is, that's you have honed into it. Yeah, the first sentence you were saying was, you can talk and network with the Irish better. It's a bigger, it's a more open pond. Now, it's not getting work there. There's less work, but easier to talk. We're great talkers. We're not great doers. So the problem there is you can court the pond. You can basically get to know everybody. And then you use that to jump to where the work is, because you're a big fish in a small pond.
I think one of the great things about being in Ireland, especially if you're a listener, which I think you have to be if you're a writer, and you listen.
Thank God I'm not a writer.
Yeah, everybody here is so happy to talk to you, but they've forgotten about what they actually said 5 minutes ago. But if you're a writer, you can write down what they've said and turn it into some really great stories.
Oh, Irish people are the most amazing storytellers. Irish people are the most amazing storytellers. We were working on a script or on a movie right now that takes place in a pub, and it's just literally people.
It's Fiddler's Walk. I've already made that movie.
Hold on a second. I mean, we've just done
beautiful movie.
We just did 3 different shows, and even Stephen Ford was saying he founded a screenwriting group in a pub. No, actually, it was a Coffee, I think it was. But no, the pub. I think I've got 2 scripts in front of me right now, somewhere on the computer, going right. The core 90% is the pub. No, because that's where the stories happen. Now, admittedly, it's starting to migrate to coffee shops because the pubs are closed or we're closed, and we don't know if they're open or closed at the moment. But but coffee shops is now where business takes place, and it's a new pub. But now the coffee shops are trying to get pub licenses. It's actually working backwards. So it's where we are. It's where people congregate.
And that is what Irish look. It's just a fact of the climate. If 3/4 of the year you have to sit inside and you have to sit together, of course that's going to breed great storytelling. Sitting around a fire and telling each other stories, what humanity does, right? And the Irish people have perfected it by adding alcohol into the mix. I mean, of course it's going to work, and so I love this culture, this beautiful, amazing culture of storytelling in this country is just absolutely amazing.
This beautiful, amazing culture of drinking in this country and talking shite. And then someone taking notes. Yeah, that's what's going on there now.
And it's absolutely, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous culture. And yes, to be able to use that to your advantage is as a writer is really, really good. And that's why all the best writers are Irish.
Yeah, one of the things I find very interesting here with the Irish, and I'm English, and you'll notice that I'm constantly, I'm Irish now. I forgot about that. I've become an Irish citizen. But one of the things that I've noticed is you have to be so polite to the Irish because they say you don't understand our humor. But one of the things that I've learned from the psychological aspect of all the Irish is that we do, but if we start to join in, they misunderstand the way we say things and we offend them.
George.
Yes, we do.
The beginning of that sentence you said is you don't understand our humor, right? And if you were Irish, the bit you have to understand is you get a ribbon on the hello. You get the bejesus taken out of you and if you're not able
I've lived here 37 years,
you get the weather forecast. That's all you get.
Analyzing the Irish. That's
great.
Basically, I know that if you say one word out of place, they go straight for the jugular, and then they are offended for the rest of their life. Oh, that's it. I'm finished. I'm finished with you. I'm away. That's it. I'm off.
Oh, you have to be able to take a slagging, like you have to be able to
give and take. You got to give and take. But you have to
go England and Ireland are planned. Whoa, there's nothing but slagging going on.
Ronnie,
but like I know that people like me when they slag me. Like I know if I'm being seriously offended,
if you're not being
friends,
slagged,
I know I'm in the group of friends. Like, you know?
That's now you have it. That's the thing. You're in. You're on the inside. Because most of the time you're taking the whole. You have to be able to take the piss. That's the game. It's a conversation battle of in the pub. It's a total take the piss of everything around you. Yes. And like you're slagging, you're taking them apart, you're mentioning their makeup, their hairdo.
Yes.
Where did they shop in Oxfam? It doesn't, and it could come straight off the catwalk. It doesn't matter. The game is to be the opposite.
It doesn't work when you have an English accent and you try to do that. It just doesn't work.
The English accent is, you're gonna have to. Work. Yeah, that's the problem.
But where I've lived, I've cultivated my English accent because it basically saved my life here.
No, that's it. No, Ronnie, you're a hustler. So you've told us you've got the secret sauce. You put it in paper. Yeah. You're hustling all day.
I saw you running across the border then the other day. All that sheep and the bicycles that were in, the smugglers were bringing across.
No, that's a rustler, George. Rustler.
You're a bit of a lisp. That's different hustling now. I don't think I'll be involved in that.
No. He's gone off on one there now. I thought I was bad. But no.
Maybe I'd make more money out of that now.
Yeah. You never know.
What sort of, you've got 3 in production, or you've got two with something attached to it. I don't know what that is. And there's one doing something else, and there's 4 more following behind. And you're doing, the great thing is you wrote the book. So you got to go out there, walk the walk, talk the talk, write the book, do the, and you're doing it, and you're getting stuff made. Yeah. So the great thing is you're a great example to others who go, I started here, I'm doing a bit of this, it's working for me, it might work for you. Yeah. There's a process. And that's what, and most of what we were learning from the last number of writers we're talking to is they've got to take themselves, we're using this language, out of the drawer. There might be a great script, but they've got to start hustling it. So you've now got a great book title. I don't need any more. I don't even need to read the bloody book, because all you got to do is apply that mindset to it and go out there and do a Paul Newman. Do some hustling. Get it made.
Exactly. And I think Stephen is the best example for that. I mean, he burst out the gate this year and just exactly did that. Just started hustling. He just finished production on another short this weekend. He's worked with some of the best cinematographers in the country. He's absolutely amazing. And I think people like Stephen, people like CJ, I mean, CJ is a legend. He's an absolute legend in the...
Never heard of him.
No.
Sure, he has a book out now, as well. And his book is probably
another one of these old books. Everybody and their mother's writing a book these days. I think George
I had 2 out about 20 years ago and another one about 12 years ago.
CJ did a lovely, and I have a friend here, he did a lovely review of my book, and it's just the lovely things he said about me.
You probably know we have a show with CJ, and we're traveling back and forth in time. You're probably going to go out before his. We're going to keep him. We're booking him up for Santa Claus. He's going to be the Christmas edition.
He's Christmas. He's the Christmas edition.
Yeah, whenever CJ's show comes out, do listen.
You better watch it, because somebody needs to listen to this rubbish.
Well, I'm just hyping him up. If he's on later than me, then I'm just hyping him up. But all of these people, there are a few people in the industry right now who I would class as up and comers.
Players, that's the language we were using. We told Stephen yesterday, we're going, you gotta be a player, you gotta hustle and be a player. And the up and coming is you gotta go play the game. And that's exactly what you were saying.
That is it. You have to have your fingers in as many pies as you possibly can. You have to be on as many sets as you possibly can. You have to talk to as many people as you possibly can. And that's the only way, because this industry is very, very tight knit, I think. Because we're a tiny little island nation. Like, there isn't that many people.
But we got big gobs. I mean, we pack punch beyond our weight. That's the whole point.
Yeah, one thing about the Irish, again, let's go back to the Irish again, because I think no matter where I went since I've been living in Ireland, everybody seemed to know who I was. And I'd go, and that was one of the great things about here compared to England. In England, I worked in Norwich for a short period of time. I'd work somebody which would be the distance of this far apart as in the edit suite. And they would cross me that distance in Norwich. And I'd say, oh, hi, how's it going? And they would totally blank me. In Ireland, in Belfast, no matter when, they'd be about half a mile down there. George, are you okay? Are you on the right side of town? Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, hang on, I'll come over to you. Just make sure you're all right. You're all right. Okay, yeah, I'm fine.
No,
and then the next thing, somebody has to do the same thing.
What's reminding me, I think what it is we're not trying. I think in general, we are a nation of givers. Yes. We give, we like to give. We get a lot from giving. And we do play that game of, pay it forward very, very well. And, and we're hoping, like even this, like you're giving of your time and it's helping us. And we don't know, even if it's only an hour, and we get a new relationship out of it, and there's an audience of one. That's absolutely the only one that matters in our book, because you make that next connection. It opens up another door. We've had 3 guests in so many days, and they're all it's like circling the bloody wagons. You're going, hold on a second. CJ referred in Stephen, who I spoke to 2 years ago, and then it just closed the loop. So it's brilliant because
and I know both of them pretty well. So
there you go.
We're on the right track here.
So it tells sense to us, because what's happening is there's 3 of you might be writer producers, but we've talked to producer actors and they came swinging back around, and turns out if you join the dots, it's just indie production for the moment in Ireland. And that group is very, very focused with a bunch of players that are all vibrating about to break out with because their talent is there. They just need the audience. If that makes sense.
And the audience is there as well. Especially now with the streamers.
Connect the two.
Especially now with the streamers coming in. I mean, RT is always very difficult to break into, and it's a whole beast. But there's so many.
Now, just stop in that sentence. You just, in my head, I had a word because you said streamer, and I was thinking Mr. Beast, and in the same bloody sentence, you chucked out RTE. Feck that, it's a beast. So the answer is
no, I never said feck RT. No, like
I know you did.
Didn't say that.
We all say
that. I wonder if the streamers thing.
They need to be.
I wonder if the streamers are really an opportunity that people believe, because I do think that they've opened up an avenue, but I wonder if they're closing it in, because we talked about Amazon, which I put something in about 10, 12 years ago. And I know CJ had said he'd done the same thing, and it seemed to open up opportunities that we were all hoping to avail of. And then very, very quickly, it just went the other way. Yes. And we can see now, one of the things that I've noticed in the stories that I've been hearing from everybody this last week, which is actually reassuring in one sense, but it's also not in another, is that what you guys are doing this year, we did 20 years ago, exactly the same thing. So in 20 years ago, a group of us in Belfast were writing short scripts. We actually wrote 14 scripts altogether. We produced around about 12 of those. Actually, we produced 14 scripts. There are other ones that were going on in the background. We became known as the Premier Rejects because Northern Ireland Screen would reject us all the time in their Premier scheme. And we were saying, you have to get your movie into this scheme and get rejected. Then we'll go and make it, and kind of go, nah. And that's what we did. And the daft thing is that I have one of my little films is in their archive, which they didn't support or have anything to do with. And they were kind of reflecting on what we did. And we ended up setting up all these film festivals. Now, people have managed to go on and do stuff, but it is a lot of heart. That energy that you guys are now showing was being shown at that particular point in time. The key is how to keep it going for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I find that a lot. I've been screenwriting for 3 years now, and I find that a lot. I find that exactly. So people have 1 or 2, successes, and then the energy just kind of goes.
Yeah.
And so, and 90% of all directors who make one big feature never make a second one, and that's really, really sad. And it's really, really sad.
She's pointing at you, George, there now. That's not directed at me at all.
And it is true. It's true, because I spent 14 years on my second feature film at the moment.
Exactly. And so it is quite sad, especially in the indie community, and especially in the kind of smaller realm that we all operate in. It is quite disheartening to see that so many writers, so many directors, so many producers do one big thing, and that eats up their entire energy, and then that's done. But the great advantage you have as a writer is, especially if you don't write and direct, which is what I don't direct, is that you don't have to limit yourself to just the one project. You can have as many irons in the fire as you can possibly kind of fit in there. So as I was saying, there's quite a few happening, quite a few features happening next year. There's an anthology happening where, it's a team of 5 directors with their own 5 different teams that I wrote and that I'm producing. And then there's 2 more, and then I have 2 in Storyland. And
now hold on a second.
So there's
you chucked in a word there that producing. I wrote and I'm producing. Yeah. Now you said you're not the director, but you've just moved to producing.
I had to step
right. I love it. No, stick with that. You had to, because that's what we were finding. The journey out of the drawer was finding these other players. You want the deck. You want a hand. The deck. You have to have your poker hand to go play, and that's what we are finding. That's you can't stay in the drawer. You can send the stuff out. Yeah. And people might start sucking it out of the drawer, going, okay, we like that one, give us another one. You might be the winner, but the rest in the drawer have to go out and find some other playing cards. They have to get a couple of suits with them. Yeah. They have to go play. They got to go hustle. It sounds like, and I said the pub, but it sounds like they're all playing poker for matchsticks down the back, and they're making plans for world domination. Yes. But you've got, the great thing is, it's that movement. It's that you've mentioned 5 names. They're all doing this. They're not all doing the same thing. They're all realizing they're all doing the same thing, which is going out in there, doing more, joining dots, getting the holistic team together, which is you're finding your strength through others, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
To empower
you. And filmmaking is a team effort. Filmmaking is always a team effort. And if you want your voice to be the only one that's heard, go write a novel. And so
right, so she's looking at me there.
Go and write a novel.
My voice to be heard.
Go and write a novel.
Write a novel. That's it. I'm out of here again. George, I'm off to write a novel. I didn't realise that was my calling.
Garvin, finish that book that we've already started last year.
I will.
But I love that about filmmaking. I love that about filmmaking is that it's always a team effort, and you get to work so closely with people, and everybody's voice is so important. And whether it's the cinematographer, whether it's the producer, whether it's the director, whether it's an actor having a creative choice in how to portray a character. And so I really, really, really love that about filmmaking, that it is a team effort, that you do have to assemble a team of people.
And how do you deal with that as a writer? Because now, that's an interesting one, because I'm an editor, so I normally have to deal with the editing at the end, so I get a lot of that. But I learned writing because I was an editor. But one of the problems is that quite often you're on a journey on your own to come up with these ideas. But how do you collaborate with the directors and the producers in the writing? Now, I know the answer, so don't answer that, Garvin. I'm asking the question deliberately.
I don't know the answer, so I can't answer that one.
And I find now this is really interesting. This question.
I'll let you talk. Don't worry.
because this is really interesting, because a lot of writers are very, very terrified of that. A lot of writers say, I put this onto the page and it took my heart blood, and this is what I put onto the page, and I will never let anybody else. That bullshit. No. You put something, and as a screenwriter, you put down the skeleton. A script is the mere skeleton. And it is on everybody else, especially the director, to put the meat on the bones. And I think a lot of, especially inexperienced screenwriters, make the mistake of saying, okay,
what if you're a vegetarian? Because we had this conversation the other day, and with Baz Black, and he's going, the whole crew are going vegetarian. Now we're going vegan.
They just have to have the corn. Meat on just bones. Go for corn. Yeah, we said that.
So let's say I don't have a vegetarian.
Yeah, we still have to flesh this story out. We're going to flesh the story out.
You're staying there.
Skeleton, we're going to flesh it out.
Tofu, bit of vegan.
Yeah. You put the tofu in the stew. But that's what I love about this art form, is that it is not just the writer's voice. And I love getting as much input as early as possible. So I don't do many drafts. I do probably 3 drafts, and then that's it. And I do a table read after the first draft. Are
you being commissioned on what the ones you're talking about versus your writing spec?
So some of them would be commissioned, some of them would be just specs that I write for myself. But I haven't written a spec.
No, the question there really was, which ones are you being paid for?
Well, no, let's just we'll go on to that pay bit in a second too. Let's just go back to this.
Oh, I see accountant coming out there now.
Yeah,
where's the money at? Show me the money.
No, because there's an important part, because one of the things I worked with a lot of students on a course that I was doing, and there was about 16 of them in the class, and we had to choose one script. And we actually got them all to write their own little scripts. And I started to read them and I saw that 4 or 5 of them had been influenced by the same ideas. Mm. And I went, oh, we can pull those together. And then we suddenly started. Yeah, well, they obviously did. But then I suddenly saw that there's a little bit of flavoring from another one. And I found 4 ideas. Now, this is a 4 to 5 minute script. So I took 1 minute of one, 1 minute of the other, 1 minute of the other, and I joined them all together. The kids were, I mean, they were young students. They were completely livid with me. They were angry. How can you join that together? And I went, but if you change that name, that name, and that name, you suddenly can link it all together.
Yeah. No, but
when they finished that draft, they were in tears. They actually made that movie.
But in the real world, realistically speaking, you're going to get put into a writer's room and none of your ideas are going to be undiluted. Yeah, again, absolutely. If you want your voice to be the only voice, you write a novel. You don't go into making.
And that's the same with editing, because I know that I the script that I'm working on at the moment, and no, life hits you in different ways. Like my dad passed away while I was in the editing process of the film I'm currently working on, which is why it's taken so long to finish. But every time I started to open it up again to edit it, then I just basically some kind of sadness just hit me and I couldn't do it. But now the time has gone past, I can now open it up and I'm suddenly in a fresh idea. And I'm suddenly seeing how I can rewrite bits of that story to make it work in the way that it hadn't done before. So the story process is there, definitely. And I bounce ideas off other people. And I get loads of ideas from Garvin because he just lets it open.
It's usually for the psychologically coaching course. It's not.
That's it. It's kind of very much influenced in that.
How broken can this guy be? Is what you want to know.
Absolutely.
And can we remake them? Can we actually rebuild them? It's actually
that's where the conflict comes back in. You see, I think that's really quite good.
Ronnie, I don't know what subjects where's your your flavor, in the sense of you're going, are you a horror person? Are you a drama? You're saying it doesn't matter. You're writing for the commission, you're writing, and then you write spec. So where does spec bring you, and where does commission seem to bring you in terms of flavor?
All my spec scripts are drama and quite heavy. Quite heavy.
Oh, I'm already fed up. Move on. Next one.
I
can't take heavy. I can't take heavy. I need light and comedy.
I've been watching Lost in Space. The last series.
I wish I could. I wish I could write horror because there's just so much money in there. But no, I'm a drama girl, I'm afraid. And the specs tend to go
I'm a drama queen as well. There's a bit of a one.
The commissions tend to go towards romance.
Okay.
So, which is
Mills and Boone. Are we talking Mills and Boone here now? Are we talking a bit?
No. But yeah, no. So it's between drama and romance, I think. Which is
go and watch Lost in Space, because when you start to look and analyze the love story,
between
it's actually about
a robot and his boyfriend. That's
there's
that all
one.
About.
No. There's also the family dynamics. I mean, I'm about to convince my wife to go and watch it, not because of the sci-fi, but because of the human sort of psychological elements, the family bits, and all the problems that the kids are having within what's going on. If you ended up embedding that part into a story, then it opens it up to anybody, no matter what the genre, because horror works the same way. If you embed all the same kind of romantic elements in there,
horror is
what
just
about Pride and Prejudice and zombies?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that was Dracula. That was exactly. You're going. No, that was a romance.
That's
I believe.
Romance.
It's just a little bit of a kink in it. I wouldn't worry about that. Just move on.
I can certainly get your teeth into that one.
So are you going a little bit no, not 4 weddings and a funeral type stuff now? I'm thinking of you, Grant. Are we going that type of romance?
Oh no, that's a bit too. No, I don't like going too hallmarky. I do like to keep an edge to the stories that I write, and most of them are quite dark in terms of their themes. And so, yeah, I like telling stories that are true to life. I like telling stories that.
Do they all have happy endings now? I mean, will I be able to sit through them?
Are
they for women? Who's the audience?
The audience, my generation. I think I like writing for my generation.
You've just opened up a can of worms there now. She could be 22, 42. This is a dangerous how old am I subject matter area.
Nobody ever gets that. Nobody ever gets that.
Here's the difference. My wife and I went to go and take a sofa to the dump.
My generation. What the hell is that?
And these youngsters with a 4-year-old got out and suddenly said, "Can we help you old folk?" And we're sitting there kind of going, "Old folk? Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Are we now?
Well.
The spirit's still young, I can tell you.
You haven't got a grey hair on your head, so that's helping.
I have several grey hairs.
Right, no, that helps now even more. That's good. Now, then again, my wife
I know a lot of 27-year-olds that are like that.
They had grey hair at
I have
16.
2 children. Of course, I have grey hair.
Right.
You know?
Well, there you go.
And is she an Irish mammy now? If you're an Irish mammy, there's 3 years between each one. And
there's 3 years. There's 3 years between them.
Dearie.
You're an Irish mammy that went to college. You done the college type thing first, 25, add 6, 31.
I never went to college. How dare you?
Bring it back 2 years, 28.
Yeah, so 27 was nearly right in the first place.
27, how dare you?
27. I still don't know lots of 27
I'm 30.
Yeah.
I am 30.
There you go. I actually had the moving average. I said bring it back 2 years and 32. So I would have got it right in the head based on the Irish mammy, 2.5 kids, but didn't go to college. Right, that's fine.
Exactly. I am 30 years old. I tend to write for my generation. I tend to write for the.
You're writing for the Irish mammy.
No. I write for
no. My sons and their wives, they're all on the PlayStation, sort of playing all the games.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I don't know. Yeah, well, yeah, Irish mom. Yeah, well, I don't know. No, I. That's all I'm going to say. I tend to write for the kind of the 24 to 40 kind of bracket.
They don't read. Well, yeah, no, they're watching a film. I forgot.
No, it's a film. It's not a novel. Go write a novel.
He's writing.
This is a visual medium.
I was thinking the novella. Sorry, I just said.
No, and I don't write that kind of romance. I don't write the kind of the cheesy.
So hold on a second. You honestly think there's a bunch of 24-year-old, 30-year-old Irish going out there watching a romantic movie?
That's what I said. I don't write the typical
right. Is
kind
it
of
in
romance.
manga style? Is what
drama,
we want to know because that might make a bit more sense.
That's like I tend to write stories that are very grounded in reality, and that's why most of my stuff doesn't actually have happy endings, or not happy endings in the kind of cheesy, typical sense.
Well, it does have an audience. This is back to. The maths, the accountant can't help it.
Yeah.
So you're writing for an audience of a market size that will go watch this, that's going to raise finance, get the thing made. They're out there watching this. We know from Stephen Fellows or Follows, whatever his fucking name is.
Fellows,
the statistics say, horror zombie might win. Indie production, drama, romance could be down the other end of the cube of not getting payback. I don't see it up where the green and red was. There was a bloodbath this side of indie, and the only thing that was actually, if it's a zombie horror, dramatic romance between, a vampire and a zombie, it might fall back into that indie curve. But the great thing about it is you're getting paid because you're being commissioned. But if you are producing, that's a different story to get paid to get to the end market.
Now, the thing is, I fall into a very lucky category of most of the big players. So RTE, Virgin, all of them. They don't do genre.
Right.
So
yes, okay.
They tend not to fund horror. They tend not to fund sci-fi. They tend to fund heavy hitting drama that can go on RTE.
Hence, don't she says, hence, cut out the bit where I'm cursing about the national broadcaster, right? Yes. She's one of those darling children that meet all the criteria. A woman, producer, writer, of Irish
diversity.
God forbid.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, you've hit all the bloody bells and whistles.
And I write quite heavy-hitting drama that deals with, trauma and mental illness and drug addiction.
Now that's the RTE board, but what about the rest of them? That's the.
So I
They're
do
all
write
the same
for the
garbage.
market that exists. I'm not, I know my audience, and I know who to write for and what to write. So
but that's a great lesson just there. I think that's probably in the book, is it? Know your audience, know your expertise, know who it's for. Because if they're not asking, there's no point in bloody writing that story, or it'll be in a drawer.
Yeah.
No, so and your side is your first customer was it was the national broadcaster's budget. It was to get in through that stakeholder doorway gatekeeper first. And actually, as you said, you're probably being asked to write it because they've seen your strength of writing material.
Yes. Yeah. So exactly. So Storyland, I think, is the big player when it comes to thing. And I was approached by a producer specifically with those parameters in mind, a hard-hitting drama that can be serialized. It's just that simple. That is what the big broadcasters are looking for, and that is exactly what I write. And so, that's it. You do have to know, and there is, Stephen is the best example for that. Horror and genre in the indie world is absolutely on fire, and I love it. And there's so much great work being done, but it wouldn't be. I have to play to my strengths. So I have to tell the stories that I am capable of telling. And most of my friends write horror, and there's huge money to be made in that. And it's a great pathway to get on streamers and to sell and to do well at festivals, because it's such a unique world that is incredibly versatile. But
I just heard before George kicks in, right? I heard, I'm not about the money, I'm about my art. Now I am about the money. But never mind that. George now has something interesting
No. Because actually, one of the things that I was about to say was that if you understood the human relationships type drama, then you can actually add the genre on top. But if you don't, and you start off with the genre, you end up working with two-dimensional characters that should be more like a cartoon than they should be 3D. The reality is that if you can understand the dynamics of human relationships and how those things work, you end up with a more powerful story that anybody will watch, regardless of what the genre is.
Yes.
And I think that's I would rather, like, all the slasher films and all the zombie movies, I hate them because there's nothing in them that gives me, all it does is gives you shooter fodder for the zombie movies, and all you're doing is alienating the other people. You have no understanding of what those people are actually about. This is the counselor.
Now, George, why do you keep on going to these zombie fest movies? Is what I can't understand.
I never go anywhere near them.
The whole point of being different audiences and different cinemas. Go to number 6, not number 5. You're in the wrong room, for God's sake.
No.
Stop wasting your time watching those programs.
Right. Like it is true. All horror and all zombie and all the slasher, they are at their very core, they're drama, with added, violence or zombies or ghosts or whatever. But the human relationship is at its core, and I think all good storytelling always has to start with character. And if you can build interesting characters, then it doesn't matter what situation you drop them in, whether they have their conflict on a spaceship or whether they have their conflict in a beautiful meadow set in the 17th century England. It doesn't matter. That is why the great stories translate. That is why you could adapt Romeo and Juliet for today, and it would still work. That is why
that was Avatar, wasn't it? I was watching that.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. So the great stories stay with us because they transcend time, because they are about humanity. And if you can write that and write that well, I think as a storyteller you have a pretty good story.
There's an interesting thing. And I'm going Ancient Alien on your ass. You see, you're very discriminatory against all these other alien races. I believe the lizards, there's the lizards, the blues, the greys, the greens, the oranges. And no, humanity is in there. But I think we're the children of the universe. So therefore, stop being discriminatory, be a little bit more diverse, and include the rest of the universe. There.
Yes, we'll include all the aliens. But that's it. Like even aliens, now, and there's another very interesting topic. Even because all the aliens are always humanoid, because it's right.
That's it.
But say Star Trek, for example. the Vulcans, they represent all of these different alien races, tend to represent different kind of character traits that stem from humanity, because humanity is all we know. And it's really, really always interesting to see what we choose to idealize. So in Star Trek, for example, our kind of lower urges, the Klingons, they would be, violent and always prone to war, whereas the Vulcans would be portrayed as the intelligent and non-emotional and our higher kind of self. And that is where so much of the conflict and really, really interesting conflict can be built from. But essentially, when you drill all the way down into it, it is still a very human conflict, because that is exactly the conflict that rages within all of us.
Right. So at the moment, we have the Klingons and the Vulcans. And I just realized I'm a Ferengi. You go, as an accountant interested in the money.
Yes.
Well, the Vulcan Klingon dynamic is actually really interesting, because the two cultures stem from the same genesis. And basically what's happened is they've chosen different attributes of the same personality and then form themselves into a slightly different culture.
No, I thought that was the Romulans and the Klingons.
Romulans and the Vulcans.
Yeah, no, but I think you'll find in the original series that also the Klingon, you see, there's a mix between those three races. I think you'll probably find that they have a link back.
That was the bloody writers in that writing room back in 1967. They couldn't make their mind up.
But originally, the idea stemmed from the divide between the Spartans and the Athenians in ancient Greek culture. So, and there's so much. That is why I would never dare in a million years to knock sci-fi or any genre of any kind, because all of them have really, really deep roots in deeply embedded human kind of cultures, and that have grown.
Well, I love the fact that you're talking about some of the kind of the philosophical stuff and the ancient sort of myths and all those kind of things. How much in preparation for writing do you think a writer should? What do you think they should start to explore to improve upon their writing? I know Garvin doesn't like us talking about this, but my premise is that basically, if you can't,
you two are under some bloody illusion that this is an indie film podcast. No, this is a pub in my side.
Yeah, no, but this is still important, because it's still about it's the genesis of language. It's the genesis of understanding our psychology. It's understanding us. Why people want to go to the pictures to actually watch something like this, which will then generate money, which will actually pay for the production in the first place. So there is a basis behind having this understanding, and it is a massive part of the movie, because if you don't get that right, it doesn't matter how much money you raise and throw in it, it will still not work if part of that story is weak. Do you know what I mean? I think that's an important part.
I think as a writer, if you're not interested and curious in everything, in every single story that's ever been told, then you're going to fall flat eventually. And I think that a lot of writers think, oh, I'm going to write my one thing, and that is going to be my thing, and I will write it, and nothing else will ever, penetrate my consciousness. Chances are you're not going to write great stuff. So the more curious you are about, educating yourself, and that doesn't go into academic education. It just means being curious about the world and listening and trying to explore different perspectives. And as a screenwriter, especially, you need to understand human nature, because you need to be able to create characters and give them voices. That's what we do in screenwriting. That is what you do. You create characters, and then you give them distinct voices. And if you are not able to give those distinct voices to your distinct characters, they will always fall flat, and the story will always fall flat, and it will always sound amateurish. And so being curious about the human condition and being curious about the history of storytelling, whether it's ancient Greek drama, whether it's Shakespearean,
Jackanory,
but they normally talk about Greek drama as well, so I think that's fascinating.
And Mr. Ben was one of my favorites. Now, he used to go into a bloody wardrobe, put the hat on. Off we go. What's going to happen today?
But isn't that just the most wonderful thing? I mean, here comes a hyper talented man, Rowan Atkinson, and he can create comedy without saying a single word. Not a word.
That was Mr. Bean. I'm talking about Mr. Ben.
Yeah,
just drop the A. You put a hat on. You dressed up. You get into the wardrobe, and you go on an adventure today. You don't, and depending on what hat you put on, you've got a new adventure, and you don't know what's going to happen next, because you're open to all things and all possibilities.
Yeah.
So you came today. You sat in the room.
Absolutely.
You took your hat off. You're open to. I don't know what. I don't know. We know you were told, you were warned. You got some pre-warning, health warning, but you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You don't know what the hell's going to happen next. We might promote you, we might not. There's no point. We've no audience. Doesn't matter. So we're actually promoting ourselves to you. This is a reverse pitch going, yeah, what have you got? How can that help us? You can write. Good. Storyline, just say. RTE, you can get the budget they want you. Good. Next year, we're the production company. Right. Yeah. So we've sorted that out. You know,
yeah. No, but I still
what's going to happen next.
I think that's because I love the idea of structure. I love the idea of the way that things get formed. And one of the things that I've been looking at, because we were talking about the Greek thing, was I started reading Plato's Republic. And one of the things I started realizing, if I want to make a really good sci-fi movie,
George is reading Plato's Republic. I'm watching Mr. Ben,
and I got Aristotle as well. Yes, but you suddenly find that when you start to read,
I've got Tom and Jerry.
Texts,
I don't know. That's as good as I'm going to get. My side.
But the great thing about it is when you start to understand how things are designed, even from the very beginning, and you begin to understand about societies and how they get framed and how you get framed within it, then you can suddenly start to look at a character set in contemporary time who suddenly discovers that everything they thought they knew was right turns out to be a lie because they've been formed in a construct.
Yes.
Right. That's the Matrix. We're back again.
That's right. We're back into the Matrix. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Because one of the things is you start to look at when Plato started talking about how do you build a city, he was starting to put those constructs on all these people. Then if you suddenly find that what's happened is it's gone out of all over the place, and you suddenly find that there are characters trying to live their life, because if you read 1984, that's what 1984 is about, because you've got Winston Smith suddenly discovering he wants to rebel. And what's he doing? He writes a journal. And he tries to hide it from the TV. And then we're sitting there kind of going, I've got all these TVs around me. Now they're listening to me.
George,
now they're telling me what I should be thinking about.
The weird thing is someone's going off to rebel and writes a journal. Rebellion in my day is actually, we go back to CJ and go, script revolution, a little bit of rebellion. It's going to go against the system.
But I think that's still important.
Not Citizen Kane, Citizen Smith. So that's where we are. It's first against the wall.
Hang on a second there, Garvin.
Then we do nothing about it.
Garvin, we're talking about Winston Smith.
Yeah, I don't care about Winston Smith.
No,
I'm talking
that was
about
the
Citizen Smith.
But he was the Citizen Smith that they were trying to deal with.
First
and I bet you that's where all the ideas came from.
We go. We talk a big talk. We walk. We don't. We sometimes don't walk the walk. We open our journal. We make plans to conquer the world, and we put it in the drawer. The whole point is we're back to what we said at the very, very beginning. They got to get out and do. They got to stop writing about it and start actually putting it into action. Now again, so that type of thing, but. That's also doing it in your case because
if there are writers, what we're trying to do here is the writers, if they understand the form that they're trying to do, which is a construct as well, because I'm coming from an editor's perspective. Once you understand what needs to be constructed, then you can go out and do. And if you don't understand that, then you can't do the doing bit. You can't do the bit where we need to break it down to a script.
You might be able to do the doing, but the doing won't do much.
That's right.
And bears do in the woods? Or does a tree fall?
I agree 100%. There should always be a little bit of structure, but I don't agree with it being formulaic. So especially as writers, I don't think if you stick to Save the Cat is great and all, but you cannot limit yourself to a formula.
Hold on a second. Did you not write a bloody book called Script Hustling? And here's the book in the ABC on how to do it.
There's not one mention in there on how to write a script. I expect you to already know how to write a script.
What's the book about?
Right.
What to do when you've written the script.
Now, one of the things that that's really good. But coming from an editor's perspective,
go out and do the do-do.
Yeah. One of the problems with editing, which is where you have to finish up with the film in the end, is that you normally have time constraints that you're working with. Now, if you're working in cinema, sometimes that varies. But if you're on a TV show, you normally have 43 minutes to tell your story, because 43 minutes in the hour will allow them to have their commercials in the beginning, middle, and end. And you only get 43 minutes. So you've got to tell your story in some kind of structure so that by the time it gets to the ad break, there's a cliffhanger or there's a few other cliffhangers so that people will then carry on watching it at the other end. So there are conventions that you still need to, you're still stuck between those signposts.
Yes.
But what happens between them is really up to the writer. As long as you hit that mark, there's the in point and the out
what's
point
interesting there, George, is you're saying you're stuck between signposts. You're stuck between adverts. Actually, you're writing for adverts.
Yes, you are. That is why streaming is so amazing, because all of that goes away. Even if it is if it's serialized, made for TV content, ad breaks don't exist on Netflix.
the moment.
And an episode can be 33 minutes or 40 minutes, and it doesn't matter. And that is why streaming, I think, has become such a disruptor.
No,
I think the construct within that is going back to the old way, because I've noticed that there are a lot of channels now opening up free if you watch the adverts. So they're trying to, because like the internet was open and free 20 years ago, and you could look for anything you wanted, but they've now commercialized it. And although at the moment, and it may take 20 years, I don't know, but at some point they'll commercialize it to such a point that those constructs will be back in there. So we still have to be aware of that. Otherwise, when you make your film today, what will happen is they'll come along and say, oh, it doesn't quite fit. We're going to have to chuck this bit out, and this bit to make it fit our frame, if you like.
But then as a writer, you have to be good enough to then be able to do that. And that is where craft comes in. That is where professionalism comes in. And that is where working with others comes in. And I think as a writer, you have to be open to those voices. You have to be open to notes. You have to be able to reconstruct. If somebody wants to reconstruct the feature that you lovingly created and say, yeah, but can you make it into 10 episodes at 30 minutes? You have to then do that. You have to be good enough to be able to do that. And you don't sit there and moan about it. You take the job and you get it done and you get the paycheck. And that's what you do.
Have you an epic in you by any chance?
Huh?
An epic, 3 hours. Is there an epic in there?
I wrote one, I wrote quite
it actually needs to be 6 hours, doesn't it?
Or I don't know what it is anymore. It's a Lord of the Rings. If you add them together, it's 9 hours.
I wrote one a few years ago called Antikythera. It's about it follows the guy who created the Antikythera mechanism. It's a historical epic that is 180 pages long.
Ooh.
And 200 million to make. So I mean, now, do you write for budget? I don't know. I mean, do you write with the budget in mind, or is that the rest of the team, or is it a case of you write first and figure out budget after?
It depends. So if I'm being commissioned to write for a specific budget, so just I think 2 weeks ago I was commissioned to write a feature for a 10,000 euro budget, and I wrote a feature for a 10,000 euro budget. Now Antikythera I wrote for myself and out of pleasure, and I didn't have any budget constraints in there because I just wrote it just to write.
Go on, what's the figure? What do you reckon?
Can we just clarify there, because you mentioned the 10,000? Was that the budget for writing, or was that the budget for the whole film?
For the whole film, it's meant to be a tiny little low budget.
Right. Okay.
So the producer came to me and said, I have 10 grand. Can you write me something that will fit into that budget? And I said, yes, I can. And I did. And so, Yeah, no, sorry. Let me just clarify again, because it's me being stupid. Was that the budget you had for you? Budget for the feature. Not my budget.
Not your budget. No. So basically you had a time frame to actually do that within. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And what kind of parameters would you set yourself to work within that time frame to produce that script?
Time frame in the sense of how long it took me to write the script?
Yes, because you're working to a budget as well.
It took me 48 hours to write that script.
48 hours. Okay, so it justified. Yeah, no, that's really good, because one of the problems that I found, it's the same problem I have as an editor, because people say, oh, well, we want you to edit this, and it's 5 minutes long. And you kind of go, okay, but what are you talking about in there? Have you got a script? No, I haven't got a script. We're going to make it up as we go along. No. That's no good. I need to know the parameters of which we're working within so that I can actually do the job within a time frame. And if it's 10 minutes, that's 2 days. And if you go over 2 days, you're paying me more money. That's not me. That's them. They can't keep changing their mind. And I think from a writer's perspective, that's how I'm doing a lot of the writing I'm currently doing. Is I've got so much time. I've got a little bit of time that I can fit that. All you're going to get is this. That's it. No more.
I'm going to be that. What? No, I don't know if it's a feature or not on who's working on it. See, the weird thing about figures, they're not real half the time. That's sometimes going, I've got 10 grand cash, but I've got 15 people working for nothing. If that was a 48 hours to write, but it's actually a 90-minute feature, and the editing alone would be 500 quid a day. You're going, and that's going to take 60 days to edit. So that would have been 10 grand, wouldn't have paid for the editing. Now at the same time, what you were saying is it's an indie production. It's a micro budget feature. It is what it is. It's probably one person in a room looking out a window reminiscing about something. I don't know what it's about.
2 people in a pub.
2 people.
There you go.
2 people in a pub. There you go.
Actually, the 10 grand is behind the bar. That's the drink bill. At the end of the day, a couple of cameras running, and whatever shite comes out of their mouth, that's what we're at.
That is it.
I love it already.
Those have a right to exist as well, and those do have a right to exist as well. And it was a fun little thing to write, and it didn't take me much effort. And so, and I think the more flexible, especially as a writer, the more flexible you are. If you can write a 200 million budget historical epic and write a 10
there's an interesting, I'm going to be cheeky and go, where are you at in your career path based on being a commissioned writer? That are you getting paid the day rate you want based on where you're not writing for the 100 million epic? No. That's what you're saying. You have plenty of little, you get work and you can get on a regular basis and be paid. Now, at the same time, you're going, what was are you close to your A game one where they've come and actually given you exactly what you wanted and you got beyond the living?
But I don't think I'll ever be there, because as soon as I reach that level, I will aim for the next level. But no, I make, like I said, most of my money comes from the States for script doctoring and script editing. That's just where the money is. That's just where
your
the
baseline.
Spec script is not. Spec scripts aren't going to get you anywhere. Not in this country. And so most of my money comes from working on other people's projects.
It's coming from the jobbing, which is actually your skill set.
It's a gig economy. It really is.
Yes.
But I'm not going to complain about my standard of living. But
we're not talking about that. We're talking about an aspirational journey, and we touched on this before. Are you going to aim for this? We're not aiming for we want to aim for the stars and hit the moon. If the thing is, you have the skill set.
Yeah.
You are just as likely as anyone else to get to be the next level. But I'm more likely based on promoting yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to interject in there, because I think one of the things that's quite interesting there is that the aiming for the moon and the sky sometimes can be this little thing that I'm just doing here that I find really exciting and I'm enjoying and I want to do it. But it's just something that's going to be a 48-hour job. But at that particular point in time, that is aiming for the stars. And I think this is where sometimes people get mixed up in the film industry. If you want to be in this film industry for a long time, what happens today, this minute, us being on this show, this is the aiming for the stars at this minute until we have to finish. And if you put everything into this moment, you will get riches beyond just money, beyond everything else. And I think that's how you sustain.
George and Garth, and you get to make friends and influence people. A relationship.
There's an important part of that in there.
You get to be in 10,000 years from now, when you have these 200 episodes of 52 Jokers Wild, you were one of those individuals.
And the thing is, and I think the very, very interesting point is, that you don't know where your next opportunity is going to come from.
That's it.
That is why you have to have as many irons in the fire as you possibly can. That is why you have to network with as many people. And that is why everybody should remember you as wonderful to work with.
That's right, which is what we said at the beginning.
What's your name again? Sorry?
Exactly.
Right. And the amazing thing about this is that we're actually coming up to the point where I have to wrap the show up. And what's really lovely is that you've echoed the beginning at the end, in the way that a real good script writer would do. And I think that's why it's really, really lovely that you've done what you've done, because you've now echoed the beginning where we started, and it brings us nice and neatly into the end part of the story, where we're now coming to the end and we have to wrap the whole thing up. Because we do have time constraints, which I think is really important. So again, I've enjoyed the conversation, because although we may be different generations, and we've discovered
that's you, George. I'm closer now over here.
I have my grown-up kids, and they're now looking after their dad, and I'm kind of going, why? What's happened? Why have I got older? And but I think if you keep that spirit of where you are now for the next 30, 40 years, I think you'll achieve what you need to achieve. And the thing is that each year presents itself, each day presents itself with something new. But like what anybody that carries on working in this industry is that you've got to have your aspirations, but you've also got to have the thing that pays the bills, that allows you to live life. Yeah. Living life generates the ideas you need to put into your stories that you want to tell. Yeah. And if you get the right story, it doesn't matter what genre you can fit it into, which I think is absolutely lovely. And that's the thing that will draw, because then you're drawing different people together to watch that, and they can share that experience regardless of what the genre is. And I think that's a big, powerful thing. The other thing is, which we've learned from a lot of people we've been talking to, and I've learned this from my own studies and my own ideas of writing and where I've come from, is you've got to study in some form or fashion. You've got to look back at what you might have think was boring. And if you go on that journey of discovery, which again I have, which is where I've gone into Plato and all that. It's not that it's something that's 2,500 years ago. It's something that seems as fresh as though somebody wrote it yesterday. And I'm sitting there kind of going, I could turn that into a movie somewhere along the line. And it could be small little power thing where the guy in the pub is sitting there kind of going, if I employ such and such and such and such to do this, we can do X, Y, and Z, and I could be a millionaire. And the other guy goes, "Dubby daft," and he becomes the protagonist and the antagonist within that journey. And all of a sudden it's based on those same simple little ideas, which I think is absolutely wonderful. So there's a lot more that we could actually talk about. And I'd love it if you'd come back again in a few months' time and have another chat with us and see if we can explore things further, because I think that would be really, really fabulous. Before we do go, any last words you'd like to say to the audience that's one or two people we have out there to inspire them?
I'm very approachable, and I love working with people I haven't worked before. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, they please should.
Brilliant.
That's because you burnt all the bridges behind you with the ones you didn't work with. No. These are new customers, new people to work with. The others know. That lot know what I can do. Yeah, they won't work with me again. That's the same problem we have. Now, I'm going to round up and go, the only thing you need to know from all of this journey and all this story is you got to be a player, and you got to go hustle. And you got to buy the book, and then you got to go do. The do in the woods, which is that you know what. Because if you ain't doing that, you're doing nothing. So like it. We're going to catch you back out there again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been our pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
Thanks very much. Bye, everybody. See you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.